hate pineapples, but I do like them on, like, certain pizza. Like, only one kind of pizza. And I know 50 subscribers unsubscribed right now. Just because I like pineapple on my pizza. But yeah. One time when I was younger, I was at CC's Pizza. And I wanted to have the dessert because their cinnamon rolls are so amazing. And the rule was, if you have dessert, you have to have fruit. And you're supposed to have fruit every day. Well, the only fruit that they had was pineapple. And I hate pineapple. Like, I don't even know how I can eat it on a pizza. Like, I absolutely hate pineapple. So, I go get this bowl of pineapple. And I'm so pissed. And I start crying in the restaurant. But I eat it so I can have my cinnamon roll buns. What you do for them CC buns. Oh man, I'm tired. And poor Charmander, like, I've been laying on him so much. He is... That person who commented that he hates me, he probably really does. I need to get him restuffed. So luckily for you guys, hey. Sorry. So I read the part about the mathematics, so you wouldn't be so bored. But something interesting about Stieg Larsson, lived in Sweden, was the editor-in-chief of the magazine Expo and a leading expert on anti-democratic, right-wing extremist and Nazi organizations. He died in 2004 shortly after delivering the manuscripts for The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, The Girl Who Played with Fire, and The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest. The person who said that the name sounds familiar, you probably heard it from The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and it's a man, or a male author. Some page turning for you, John. My throat's dry. Okay. So sorry. Okay, so, because I can't even remember, my memory is so bad. I thought I went through the whole math part, but I guess I stopped. Alright, so pretty much this, like, lady does not like unsolved mysteries. She needs to know there's another way around it. So she sent out an email that said, no broadband here. Need info on a Dr. Forbes with the Santa Maria Foundation and his wife, living in Austin, Texas. $500 to whoever does the research. WASP. She attached her public PGP key, encrypted the message with Plague's PGP key, and sent it. And then she looked at the clock and saw that it was just past 7:30 p.m. Sometimes I read books and I'm like, am I supposed to know what PGP means? Am I just not up to date with stuff? Is that completely over my head? I don't know today's slang. Like when people do abbreviations, I'm like, what the heck does TFW mean or FTW? Because when I was growing up, it meant for the win, or F the world. So things have changed. I think it was TFW now. I don't know. There's so many different ones. I'm just like, what? She turned off her computer, locked her door, and walked 400 yards along the beach past the road to St. George's and knocked on the door of a shack behind the coconut. George Bland was 16 and a student. He intended to become a lawyer or a doctor or possibly an astronaut. He was just as skinny as a Solander, and only a little taller. Solander had met him on the beach the day after she moved to the Grand Anse. She had sat down in the shade under some palms to watch the children playing football by the water. She was engrossed in dimensions when the boy came and sat in the sand a few yards away from her. Apparently without noticing she was there. She observed him in silence, a thin black boy in sandals, black jeans, and a white shirt. He, too, had opened a book and immersed himself in it. Like her, he was reading a mathematics book, Basics 4. He began to scribble in an exercise book. 5 minutes later, when Solander cleared her throat, he jumped up with a start. He apologized for bothering her and was on the brink of being gone when she asked him if what he was working on were complicated formulas. Algebra. After a minute, she had shown him an error in his calculation. After half an hour, they had finished his homework. After an hour, they had gone through the whole of the next chapter in his textbook, and she had explained the trick behind the arithmetical operations as though she were his tutor. He had looked at her awestruck. After 2 hours, he had told her that his mother lived in Toronto, that his father lived in Grenville, on the other side of the island, and that he himself lived in a shack a little way along the beach. He was the youngest in the family with 3 older sisters. Solander found his company surprisingly relaxing. The situation was unusual. She hardly ever began conversations with strangers just to talk. It was not a matter of shyness. For her, a conversation had a straightforward function. How do I get to the pharmacy? Or, how much does the hotel room cost? Conversation also had a professional function. When she worked as a researcher for Dragan Armansky at Milton Security, she had never minded having a long conversation if it was to ferret out facts. On the other hand, she disliked personal discussions, which always led to snooping around in areas she considered private. How old are you? Guess. Do you like Britney Spears? Who? What do you think of Carl Larsson's paintings? I've never given them a thought. Are you a lesbian? Piss off. Oh, and now I remember this part because I already did read this part. Oops. This boy was gawky and self-conscious, but he was polite and tried to have an intelligent conversation without competing with her or poking his nose into her life. Like her, he seemed lonely. He appeared to accept without puzzlement that a goddess of mathematics had descended onto Grand Anne's beach, and with pleasure that she would keep him company. They got up as the sun sank to the horizon. They walked together towards her hotel, and he pointed out the shack that was his student quarters. Shyly, he asked if he might invite her to tea. The shack contained a table that was cobbled together, 2 chairs, a bed, and a wooden cabinet for clothes. The only lighting was the desk lamp with a cable that ran to the coconut. He had a camp stove. He offered her a meal of rice and vegetables, which he served on plastic plates. Boldly, he even offered her a smoke of the local forbidden substance, which she also accepted. Solander could not help notice that he was affected by her presence and did not know how he should treat her. She, on a whim, decided to let him seduce her. It developed into a painfully roundabout procedure in which he certainly understood her signals but had no idea how to react to them. Finally, she lost patience, pushed him roughly onto the bed, and took off her shirt and jeans. Okay, I'm sorry, but how old are you? Okay, I can't find it, but I'm just going to pretend that she's just 18. Okay. Anyways. It's the first time she had shown herself naked to anyone since the operation in Italy. She had left the clinic with a feeling of panic. It took her a long while to realize that no one was staring at her. Normally she didn't give a damn what other people thought, and she did not worry about why she felt nervous now. Young Bland had been a perfect initiation for her new self. When at last, after some encouragement, he managed to unfasten her bra, he immediately switched off the lamp before undressing himself. Solander could tell he was shy, and she turned the lamp back on. She watched his reactions closely as he began to touch her clumsily. Only much later did she relax, certain that he thought her breasts were natural. On the other hand, it was unlikely he had much to compare them to. She had not planned to get herself a teenage lover on Granada. It had been an impulse, and when she left him late that night, she didn't consider going back. But the next day she ran into him on the beach and realized that the clumsy boy was pleasant company. For the 7 weeks she lived on Granada, George Bland became a regular part of her life. They did not spend time together during the day, but they spent the hours before sundown on the beach and the evenings alone in his shack. She was aware that when they walked together, they looked like two teenagers. Sweet 16. Okay, good. I'm glad that she's young. He evidently thought that life had become much more interesting. He had met a woman who was teaching him about mathematics and eroticism. He opened the door and smiled delightedly at her. "Will you like company?" she said. Solander left the shack just after 2 in the morning. She had a warm feeling in her body and strolled along the beach. Instead of taking the road to the Keys Hotel, she walked alone in the dark, knowing that Bland would be 100 yards behind. He always did that. She had never slept over at his place, and he often protested that she, a woman all alone, should not be walking back to her hotel at night. He insisted it was his duty to accompany her back to the hotel, especially when it was very late, as it often was. Solander would listen to his objections and then cut the discussion off with a firm no. "I'll walk where I want, when I want, and no, I don't want an escort." The first time she caught him following her, she was really annoyed, but now she thought it was his wanting to protect her was rather sweet, so she pretended that she did not know he was there behind her, or that he would turn back when she saw her go in the door of the hotel. She wondered what he would do if she were attacked. She would make use of a hammer she had bought at a hardware store and kept in the outside pocket of her shoulder bag. There were not so many physical threats that could not be countered with a decent hammer, Solander thought. There was a full moon and the stars were sparkling. Solander looked up and identified Regulus and Leo near the horizon. She was almost at the hotel terrace when she stopped short. She had caught sight of someone near the waterline below the hotel. It was the first time she had seen a living soul on the beach after dark. He was almost 100 yards off, but Solander knew at once who it was there in the moonlight. It was a fine Dr. Forbes from room 32. She took 3 quick steps into the shadow of a tree. When she turned her head, Bland was invisible too. The figure at the water's edge was walking slowly back and forth. He was smoking a cigarette. Ever so often he would stop and bend down as if to examine the sand. This pantomime continued for 20 minutes before he turned with rapid steps, walked to the hotel's beach entrance, and vanished. Solander waited for a few minutes before she went down to where Dr. Forbes had been. She had made a slow semicircle, inspecting the sand. All she could make out was pebbles and some shells. After a few minutes, she broke off her search and went back to the hotel. On her balcony, she leaned over the railing and peered in her neighbor's door. All was quiet. The evening's argument was obviously over. After a while, she took from her shoulder bag some papers to roll a joint from the supply that Bland had given her. She sat down on a balcony chair and gazed out at the dark water of the Caribbean. As she smoked and thought, she felt like a radar installation on high alert. Okay. Friday, December 17th. Chapter 2. Advocate Nils Erik Butcherman sat down his coffee cup and watched the flow of people outside the window of Cafe Hayden on Stureplan. He saw everyone passing in an unbroken stream, but he observed none of them. He was thinking of Lisbeth Solander. He thought often about Solander. What he was thinking made him boil with rage. Solander had crushed him. He was never going to forget it. She had taken command and humiliated him. She had abused him in a way that had left indelible marks on his body, on an area the size of a book below his navel. She had handcuffed him to his bed, abused him, and tattooed him with, "I am a sadistic pig, a pervert, and a rapist." Stockholm's district court had declared Solander legally incompetent. He had been assigned to be her guardian, which made her inescapably dependent on him. From the first time he met her, he had fantasized about her. He could not explain it, but she seemed to invite that response. Freaking pig. What he had done, he, a 55-year-old lawyer, was reprehensible, indefensible by any standard. He knew that, of course, but from the moment he laid eyes on Solander in December 2 years earlier, he had not been able to resist her. The laws, the most basic moral code, and his responsibility as her guardian, none of it mattered at all. She was a strange girl, fully grown, but with an appearance that made her easily mistaken for a child. He had control over her life. She was his to command. She had a record that robbed her of credibility if she ever had a mind to protest, nor was it a rape of some innocent. Her file confirmed that she had many sexual encounters, could even be regarded as promiscuous. One social worker's report had raised the possibility that Solander had solicited sexual services for payment when she was 17. A police patrol had observed a drunken older man sitting with a young girl on the park bench in Tantalundum. The police had confronted the pair. The girl had refused to answer their questions, and the man was too intoxicated to give them any sensible information. In Bjerman's eyes, the conclusion was straightforward. Solander was a whore at the bottom of the social scale. It was risk-free. If she dared to protest to the guardianship agency, no one was going to believe her word against his. She was the ideal plaything, grown up, promiscuous, socially incompetent, and at his mercy. It was the first time he had exploited one of his clients. Previously, it had never occurred to him to make advances to anyone with whom he had a professional relationship. To satisfy his sexual needs, he had always turned to prostitutes. He had been discreet, and he paid well. The problem was that prostitutes were not serious, they were only pretending. It was a service he bought from a woman who moaned and rolled her eyes. She played her part, but it was as phony as a street theater. He had tried to dominate his wife in the years that he was married, but she had merely gone along with it, and that too was a game. Solander had been the perfect solution. She was defenseless. She had no family, no friends, a true victim, ripe for plundering. The opportunity makes the thief. And then out of the blue, she had destroyed him. She had struck back with power and determination that he had not dreamed she possessed. She had humiliated him. She had tortured him. She had all but demolished him. During the almost 2 years since then, Bjerman's life had changed dramatically. After Solander's nighttime visit to his apartment, he had felt paralyzed, virtually incapable of clear thought or decisive action. He had locked himself in, did not answer the telephone, and was unable even to keep up contact with his regular clients. After 2 weeks, he went on sick leave. His secretary was deputized to deal with his correspondence at the office, canceling all his meetings and trying to keep irritated clients at bay. Every day, he was confronted by the tattoo on his body. Finally, he took down the mirror from the bathroom door. He returned to his office at the beginning of summer. He had handed over most of his clients to his colleagues. The only ones he kept for himself were companies for whom he dealt with legal business correspondence without being involved in meetings. His only active client now was Solander. Each month he wrote up a balance sheet and a report for the guardianship agency. He did very precisely what she had demanded. The reports had not a grain of truth in them, and made plain that she no longer needed a guardian. Each report was an excruciating reminder of her existence, but he had no choice. Bjerman had spent the summer and the autumn in helpless, furious brooding, and then in December he pulled himself together and went on vacation to France. While there, he consulted a specialist at a clinic for cosmetic surgery outside Marseilles about how to best remove the tattoo. The specialist had examined his abdomen with ill-concealed astonishment. At last he recommended a course of action. One way would be laser treatment, he said, but the tattoo was so extensive that he was afraid the only realistic solution was a series of skin grafts. It would be expensive and it would take time. The past few years, Bjerman had seen Solander on only one occasion. On the night she attacked him and established control over his life. She had taken a spare set of keys to his office and apartment. She would be watching him, she had told him, and when he least expected it, she would drop in. He had almost begun to believe it was an empty threat, but he had not dared to change the locks. Her warning had been unmistakable. If she ever found him in bed with a woman, Solander would make public the 90-minute video that documented how he had raped her. In January, a year ago, he had woken at 3 a.m., not sure why. He had turned on his bedside light and almost howled in fright when he saw her standing at the foot of his bed. She was like a ghost suddenly there. Her face was pale and expressionless. Her hand, she held her fucking taser. "Good morning, Mr. Advocate, German," she said. "So sorry for waking you this time. Good God, has she been here before while I slept?" He could not tell whether she was bluffing, but German cleared his throat and was about to speak. She cut him off with a gesture. "I woke you for one reason only. I'm going to be away for a long time quite soon. Keep writing your reports every month, but don't post copies to me. Send them to this Hotmail address." She took a folded paper from her jacket pocket and dropped it on the bed. "If the guardianship agency wants to get in touch with me or anything else comes up that might require me being there, write me an email at this address. Is that understood?" He nodded. "I understand." "Don't speak. I don't want to hear your voice." He clenched his teeth. He had not dared to try to reach her since she had threatened to send the video to the authorities if he did. Instead, he had thought for months what he would say to her when she eventually contacted him. He really had nothing he could say in his defense. All he could do was appeal to her humanity. He had tried to convince her, if she would only give him a chance to speak, that he had done it in a fit of insanity, that he was utterly sorry for it and wanted to make amends. He would grovel if that would convince her, if he could only suddenly defuse the threat she had posed. "I have something to say," he said in a pitiful voice. "I want to ask for your forgiveness." She listened in silence to his plea, then she put one foot on the bottom of the bed and stared at him in disgust. "Now you listen to me, German. You're a pervert. I have no reason to forgive you, but if you keep yourself clean, I'll let you off the hook the day my declaration of incompetence is rescinded." She waited until he lowered his gaze. "She's going to make me crawl. There's no change to what I said a year ago. You fail, and the video goes to the agency. You contact me in any way other than I tell you to, then I make the video public. I die in an accident, the video will be made public. You ever touch me again, I will kill you." He believed her. "One more thing. The day I set you free, you can do as you like, but until the day, you will not set foot again in that clinic in Marseilles. If you begin treatment, I will tattoo you again, and this time I'll do it on your forehead." How the fucking hell did she find out about the clinic? The next moment she was gone. He heard a faint click as she turned the front door key. It was as if a ghost had paid him a visit. At that instant, he began to loathe Elizabeth Solander with an intensity that blazed like red-hot steel in his brain, and transformed his life into an obsession to crush her. He fantasized about killing her. He toyed with fantasies of having her crawl at his feet and beg him for mercy. But he would be merciless. He would put his hands around her throat and strangle her until she gasped for air. He wanted to tear her eyes from their sockets and her heart from her chest. He wanted to erase her from the earth. Paradoxically, it was at this same moment that he felt as though he had begun to function again, and he discovered in himself a surprising emotional balance. He was obsessed with the woman, and she was on his mind every waking minute, but he had begun to think rationally again. If he was going to find a way of destroying her, he would have to get his head in order. His life settled on a new objective. He stopped fantasizing about her death and began planning for it. I'm getting tired. Oh my gosh, I just did my hair. And of course it's not gonna look nice.